Great. So you are all very welcome to this week's Nutrition with Aduco Gym Live, and I'm Jamie Marsco from Aduco Gym. And once again, we are joined by Martin Forde. Martin, you're very welcome. Thank you very much for joining us again. How are you?
I'm wonderfully well, Jamie. Thank you, and pleasure to be here as always.
Absolutely. So we're going to cover minerals, and for those of you joining us for the first time, we've covered a series of topics. So do look them up on our Facebook page. They are stored there. We covered low glycemic nutrition really at the beginning. Then we covered fats and inflammation. We've covered vitamins, and yeah, we've done some great work. So today it's minerals. So maybe Martin, we'll start with trace minerals because some people, I mean, they'll be familiar maybe with the more common minerals, things like calcium, magnesium, iron, for example, but maybe not so much the trace minerals. So what sort of trace minerals should people be conscious of including in their diet? How do they get them, and what effect will they have?
The trace minerals are largely influenced by the type of agricultural background. So in Ireland, for instance, the soil tends to be, as far as I know, low in selenium. And, selenium, therefore, may be worth bothering with in terms of a trace element. On the other hand, most of the vegetables that we eat are very high in copper. They're certainly adequate in copper. So copper is rarely needed to be supplemented. In certain circumstances, yes, but not very much for the ordinary person. And in formulating cell rejuvenation mix, which has all the vitamins and minerals, we take that type of thing into account. Just as a matter of interest, the minerals are like a framework of the body that they can't be replaced in general by anything else. Sometimes you could argue one vitamin could replace another one. Yeah, to a point. But with minerals, no, it doesn't happen like that so much. And the minerals, as you pointed out, divide into minerals we require in rather larger quantities and minerals that we need only in, yes, trace amounts. And the one that I would pick out to mention to people is selenium because of the amazing effect it has on the immune system.
Okay.
Years ago, I was asked to go on a television program, and they had a research article that I was supposed to comment on. And the research article said, vitamins don't cure this particular type of cancer. And I said, well, okay, fair enough, it doesn't. But the other part of this research that you're not referring to shows that selenium has this massive effect on reducing illnesses in all sorts of areas, like 30%, 40%, and for all different kinds of areas of the body as well. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's worth considering selenium. It has a marvelous antioxidant effect in the body, and it's very easy to get.
And it's known as a preventer of cancer and heart disease, is it?
It's known as a preventer of almost everything, frankly.
Okay.
Now, whether we're supposed to say that or not, well, I'll certainly say it. I have no hesitation in saying it. Let me tell you a story about selenium.
Yeah.
Long time ago, Ireland used to get a lot of Canadian wheat. Canadian wheat tends to be high in selenium. The reason Ireland got Canadian wheat is that they couldn't make bread with Irish wheat. Just as simple as that. They needed hard wheat from Canada. Now that's gone by the by because they're able to put things into bread to imitate hard wheat. And so they can make bread with Irish wheat now. Broadly speaking, as far as I understand it, that's the story. The corollary of that is that we don't get enough selenium. We don't get the same selenium we did at one point.
Okay.
So selenium, if you want selenium, the simple way is eat 3 Brazil nuts a day or take the cell rejuvenation mix, which contains 200 micrograms of selenium, which we think to be a suitable dose, a suitable intake, starter intake for the ordinary person. There's a lot more can be said about selenium, but that's just the start of it, I'd say.
Okay. And in terms of, does it matter where you get your Brazil nuts?
As far as I know, it doesn't matter very much.
Right.
Most of them will come from Bolivia, I understand, who are rather more enthusiastic about exporting them.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And selenium also has an impact on joints.
I know we're talking about minerals here, but I'm keen to say that Brazil nuts are a wild product. They're not cultivated. They can't cultivate them, as far as I know. So they're picked wild.
Okay, brilliant. And selenium for joints. There's an impact on joints, isn't there?
Selenium, in fact, affects your thyroid gland to a very large extent. So one of the trace minerals that's really important is iodine. And both iodine and selenium and your thyroid in general will affect your joints, because you can't make new tissue without good thyroid action. So if your thyroid is okay, then you're less likely to have joint problems. If your thyroid isn't okay, you can't quite make the repair tissues you need to. So selenium does come into it from that point of view. So a lot of people who have difficulty with their thyroid may not quite be able to use iodine as well as they should because they lack selenium. So selenium comes into a lot of things.
Okay, very interesting. And so then moving on to maybe another trace element, what about chromium? Because maybe some people will be aware of chromium, but a lot of people won't. But based on maybe modern instances of different types of diseases, possibly chromium could have a good role to play. So maybe talk little bit about chromium.
Chromium has a distinctive role in the control of blood sugar.
Yeah.
And it's very, very helpful for people who want to go on a slimming diet, just as simple as that. It tends to control cravings, appetite. Yeah. It's also very, very helpful for people who may be diabetic.
Okay.
So that's something that probably needs some specialized advice, but it does stop, if properly taken, it tends to control surges of blood sugar, which is where the problems can arise. And as you probably know, surges of blood sugar are a hazard for almost every type of common illness that we're faced with, including blood illnesses and vascular illnesses, etc., etc. So you don't want this surging blood sugar situation. And a product like Cell Rejuvenation Mix has a good amount of chromium in it. Strangely, chromium is not the most widely studied mineral. We know it's an essential mineral.
Yeah.
We know that you can't live without it. It's fairly well found in vegetables, to be fair.
Okay.
But the benefits of taking somewhat larger amount are distinctive.
Okay, brilliant. Right, and it's found in vegetables. What other natural source do we have for chromium?
No, nearly all just vegetables and yes, grains and that type of thing, provided there isn't too much phytic acid, etc., that can stop you absorbing these minerals.
Okay, and cinnamon. Cinnamon's a good source of chromium.
Cinnamon has a herbal action to change your response to blood sugar, etc. Right?
Yeah.
And its chromium content may not be the main avenue of its action there.
Okay, interesting. Okay, brilliant. And we also have it in Profem, don't we? It's in combination with the protein that we make, particularly for ladies.
That's right. There's a decent amount of chromium in Profem. Every dose has 200 micrograms of chromium, which is sufficient to control blood sugar surges, which is one reason why the ladies find Profem very, very helpful to control the appetite.
Yeah.
On a program or any kind of program, on a health program. So chromium is one of these ones that you can take more of with benefit. I would say with selenium, you can take more of it with benefit. Now, funny, not all minerals are like that, but some of the trace minerals are. So, yes, you would take more than you'd normally find in the vegetables that you would eat when it comes to these minerals.
So I know we mentioned iodine, but are there any other trace minerals that we should mention that would make a difference for people?
If you look at what we've put into Cell Rejuvenation Mix, you have boron. You've got 3 milligrams of boron. Boron controls some of your hormones, but more importantly, it's very beneficial for the joints.
Okay.
And yeah, so it's an essential mineral. Essential means that if you're deprived of it, bad things happen. And I don't know if you can die of a lack of boron, but you'll certainly tend to get conditions which can be resolved by continuing and taking more boron. Okay. So the trace minerals, I'm going to tell you an interesting thing about trace minerals, and that is that they can be overwhelmed by other minerals. In other words, your absorption of trace minerals can be inhibited by too many minerals that we take in bulk. And the main one that we take in bulk is calcium.
Okay.
So large amounts of calcium will tend to restrict the availability of the minerals I've talked about, and also of iron and also of zinc. And they're minerals which are found in lesser amounts in the body. So the perfect way of taking something like cell rejuvenation mix, if that's what you're taking, is to take it with a protein type meal that doesn't contain calcium, frankly.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
very
And that
interesting.
way you absorb the minerals to the greatest possible extent. Put it in with calcium, you get a reduction in the amount. Now, cell rejuvenation mix itself has been formulated specially to take account of that fact, and there's no calcium to speak of in it.
Okay.
If you want a calcium supplement, and most people need to take high calcium foods somewhere or another, uh, high calcium foods or a calcium supplement, if it's going to be that, should be apart from the cell rejuvenation mix, because there's no. The other thing about calcium is that you need a very big tablet if you're going to put it in a tablet, and cell rejuvenation mix would be twice as big if we were going to put calcium in. So no calcium in cell rejuvenation mix. Calcium and cell rejuvenation mix kind of are the opposite ends of the spectrum. You need both. Now, the other thing that doesn't appear in cell rejuvenation mix is iron. It's an iron-free formula. And why an iron-free formula? The reason is that nearly all supplemental forms of iron are pro-oxidant, and you don't want a pro-oxidant ingredient in with your antioxidants. Well, why would you? It wouldn't work. So many people, by the way, go to deliberately choose an antioxidant formula that doesn't contain iron, and they're right. The perfect accompaniment, strangely, for iron, which you can get in quite high doses, is calcium, particularly calcium caseinate, because iron in the best and most absorbable form, heme iron, is balanced very well by casein and is absorbed very well in the body and tends to have a very beneficial effect.
Okay,
If you
that's
take
very interesting.
if you take iron as most of the mineral forms of iron, which is what the lady who is pregnant will be given a mineral iron. It can work to bring the blood up, there's no doubt whatever, but it tends to have a pro-oxidant effect in the body. So it's not in my mind, it's not as good as it should be. I would direct people towards special liver formula or hemoglobin iron, which is very effective if iron is needed. And like a lot of supplements, such as mineral supplements such as iron and zinc, are probably best taken on their own, practically apart from food, and you absorb much more of them when you do.
Okay, that's very interesting. So, why would somebody, just for those maybe who aren't so familiar with nutrition, what is what role does iron play in the body?
Yes. Well, iron primarily carries oxygen via the hemoglobin in your red blood cells. So that's the number one. And if you don't have enough iron, if you're slightly low in iron, you won't be able to think. You won't be able to assimilate all this great nutritional material. You won't be able to concentrate, focus, study. You'll be tired. And the type of tiredness that's typical of iron goes like this. You can drive yourself on all day, you're all right, and in the evening you're gone. Can't stay awake.
Okay.
Watch out for that. You take special liver formula and you'll be able to keep going. Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because of the peculiarly advantageous form of iron that's in it, which is hemoglobin iron.
Which is much more absorbable.
Yes.
Okay, so maybe it's a good time to discuss a couple of different things. So there are obviously different forms of minerals. There's organic forms and inorganic forms. So what is the difference? And I think this is really important, particularly if you're looking for a supplement. So those of you that are watching, if you're looking for a mineral supplement for whatever mineral you feel that you're lacking, that you'd like to consume more of, there are different, not all minerals are created equal, and it's probably important to understand that. So, Martin, maybe explain the difference.
Yeah, much is made of this, and in general, organic means it's passed through an animal or a plant, and it's become bound to an organic molecule in that way. Now, there are kind of intermediates between organic and inorganic. For instance, some of the citrates, yeah, they would be chemically classed as organic, but they may have been manufactured, in other words, rather
Okay.
than passed through a plant or an animal. So, for many of the minerals, it may not matter very much. For those trace minerals, typically, you're going to take some kind of mineral form of it. Take iodine, you take potassium iodide, or you may take iodine trichloride. These are pure mineral combinations. They're not organic in that sense. But when it comes to the minerals you take in large quantities, and I'd nearly include anything from iron on upwards with that, iron, possibly zinc, certainly magnesium and calcium in particular, then the organic forms come into their own. So if you have calcium that's bound to a protein, that is the best of all. It works much better than any kind of mineral calcium that may be offered. Now, typically people take mineral calcium, they take calcium carbonate. I can tell you that'll end up in your joints quicker than anything, in
Yeah.
the wrong way, as calcium crystals. And the danger with calcium and the problem with calcium is that it ends up as calcium deposits everywhere you don't want it. It can be in your arteries, in your heart, it could be in the arteries in the neck, it could be in your joints, it could be in your knees, it could be in your low back. And the calcium deposits are going to hurt, generally. Now, you don't feel them in your heart or in your arteries, but they're working away there to stiffen up the body and to lower your capacity to respond to all kinds of situations.
Yeah. Okay. So when they talk about arterial sclerosis,
Yeah, the sclerosis part is the problem. Funny enough, the fats, if it's only fats, and sometimes it can be only fats, that tends to remain more flexible. But with the sclerosis, which is the hardening part, yeah, so if the blood vessel hardens, then it cannot respond in the normal sense. And if it becomes narrowed, it can't widen, yeah. And if there's a shock or something like that, it can't respond properly to widen up in the main parts of the circulation where that would normally be required. And this is where everything would tighten up, and God forbid a person may have a real problem at that point. So we have to be very, very careful as to how well we absorb calcium, yeah, whether we're absorbing it in balance, and particularly how you'll know to a large extent is that you avoid calcium deposits. Calcium deposits are where this hurts and that hurts and the other thing hurts to a large extent. Now, I'm going to tell you something paradoxical, which is well known in nutrition, and that is if you have no calcium in the diet, none, you'll get calcium deposits. Why? Because it's been pulled out of the bones. And it'll be pulled out of the bones into the bloodstream in abundance, possibly, and that will in itself cause calcium deposits under the wrong circumstances. So calcium is something of a two-edged sword. You need lots of it, but you don't need too much of it, and you need it in balance with everything else.
okay. Okay, great. So when you're looking for your supplement and you think that you're getting a good bargain, and just check whether your mineral is bound to another mineral. So calcium carbonate, we'd be much better looking for things like calcium citrate or even a chelated form, so where it's bound to a protein.
Well, the protein chelated form, I mean, the ultimate protein chelated form, it possibly is calcium caseinate.
Okay,
Yeah?
great.
Or,
Yeah.
calcium phosphate caseinate, as is found in the micellar calcium that we have in, say, Lipoclear and that. So organically bound calcium is going to be better.
Yeah.
There's another thing too, and that is that protein and calcium go together in a strange way. If you can absorb and use calcium properly, you're probably absorbing and using protein well also. If you think about the bones aren't the joke I make. is the bones aren't made of calcium. Your bones are made of protein.
Okay. Yeah.
And of course they're made of protein, because without the protein, what would the calcium stick into? It'd have nothing to stick into.
Yeah.
So if it should happen, God forbid, that you were losing bone mass, that means you're losing protein as well.
That's
Restore
very
the
interesting.
protein, it naturally tends to pick up the calcium. This is where, the bone structure has mini bones inside it called trabeculae. And these mini bones, which form a grid within the mesh part of the bone, can regrow and does regrow when people are recovering from osteopenia and osteoporosis. How does it
Right.
regrow? It regrows by the formation of a new protein matrix. And then the calcium sticks back into that and hardens. And so we've got, well, uh, bones that are both hard and flexible at the same time, which is what you want.
Okay. And is boron? Mark is asking. We might as well just because we're covering the topic. He's wondering about boron. Is that important for bringing calcium into the bones?
Well, in very small amounts it is, yes,
Yeah.
which is why we've included in the multivitamin the celujuven, and also in the our new bone and nerve formula contains boron, and that boron, boron on its own has been known to cure arthritis. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. So
but in the
then,
balance,
go for it, Martin. Sorry. Go
yeah,
ahead.
but no, in something like the bone and nerve formula that we used to call nighttime formula, for a good reason that you're going to mention in a minute, Jamie,
Yeah.
right? The bone and nerve formula affects your bones and your nerves. The calcium and magnesium, together with the boron and the vitamin D and vitamin K in that, helps you uh, relax, as well as providing the necessary minerals to do well in terms of your bones. So you absorb those very well at night, but also if you take calcium and magnesium before you go to bed at night, such as in the bone and nerve formula, you get this relaxation effect. And you should be able to wake up beautifully relaxed in the morning after a great night's sleep.
That's it. So that was my question, but you've beaten me with the answer. So if people were looking to have a good night's sleep and wanted to improve their sleep, what would you recommend? So, our
Formerly,
alkaline mineral
formerly we
supplement.
called it nighttime formula,
Yeah.
which was great. But to spell it out for people, that it is actually a bone support formula, and a very good one as well, because not all of them have vitamin K in them.
Yeah.
Vitamin K is the vitamin which, working with vitamin D, tends to cause your calcium to go into your bones and not into your soft tissues or the parts of your joints which can gather calcium crystals.
Okay, so calcium then is also very good for having an effect on your muscles in a sense that it allows your muscles to contract. So if you're into training, you're into exercise, lifting heavy weights, you must have a good supply of calcium, correct?
Yeah, without calcium, then you can have difficulties fully contracting the muscles. It's as simple as that. Calcium is necessary. You need calcium outside your muscles, by the way, right? And weirdly, it's the nerves. The nerves will instruct the body to take in a small amount of calcium into the muscles, which gives this lifting power when you're in the gym. Yeah, which is what you want. So calcium is helpful from that point of view. In fact, a higher calcium diet, in my opinion, can make you noticeably stronger. You keep going with it, but people who lack calcium may not be able to optimize their strength. We'll put it that way.
Okay, great. So synergistically in the body, you have then a balancing mineral with calcium, so magnesium. So one of the things that maybe people might suffer from, because it seems to be very, very common, is that they often suffer from constipation and bowels that maybe are too tight. So it's not something that people talk about at the dinner table. And so how does magnesium work in
Except
relation to calcium?
In France, you're allowed to talk at the dinner table about this, by the way.
Maybe at your household,
Oh,
yeah.
yes, I know. The French are into this. Now, I won't get into it. I'm sorry, any French person out there. Apologies to you for stereotyping. No, if you look back in the literature, back to the maybe 100 years ago, and I'm thinking maybe of, if you look at Émile Coué's works, right? And he gives a mind program for a person to take on. And, half of it is about the bowels. Constipation was a big thing in those days. When I was a student of naturopathy, it was pointed out that constipation and arthritis went together. Do you know?
Okay, interesting.
And of course, some of the doctors would kind of give you a laxative, yeah, and expect it. No, we won't get into that, right? But the simple solution, the simple link between the two is magnesium. So if you have sufficient magnesium available to you in your nutrition, then both will be looked after to a very large extent. Yeah, because magnesium relaxes everything. It relaxes tightnesses in the joints, it relaxes tightnesses in the bowel. It tends to make you relaxed. So magnesium is good. It gives you energy, by the way. It's very important for that too.
Yeah.
But one of the things it does, it controls your absorption of calcium. And if you can have a controlled absorption of calcium, then you're beginning to win. So generally speaking, we would be at pains to say to people that if you take calcium, even in this organically bound calcium, casein form, let's say, that you should take magnesium with that. And you won't go wrong with the magnesium. 1 a day is good. 2 a day will be good for some people. Now, after that, you probably don't need an awful lot more. I've heard of people taking more. But to be honest with you, you don't want to loosen your bowels too much. 1 or 2 will not have, for most people, that big of an effect, except to help them massively with the calcium, the use of calcium in the body. It makes a huge difference, tremendous difference. Yeah, so if you ever get little pains here, little pains there, little pains in your knees, little pains, they're the typical areas, even in the hip, then magnesium is going to help. Now, there's other things that help, like, a combination of, say, fish oils together with nettle and glucosamine. Yeah, these are supplements, all things we know about that genuinely help arthritis at any level. We've had people with marvelous results out of that. That's the A-Right, B-Right product. Yeah. Where you combine fish oils. Not everybody, by the way, Jamie, if we were talking to an audience of people that weren't very clued in nutritionally and were taking and doing things that we might say they're not the best things nutritionally to be doing, sometimes those people mightn't be able to take on calcium very, very easily. Mm-hmm. And they're very safe to go down the route of maybe taking fish oils, taking glucosamine, taking nettle, which is what is in the A-Right and B-Right. So it's very, very safe maybe for older people who are on maybe a very, very traditional diet or whatever, and have yet to learn much about how to manipulate the elements of the diet, particularly the calcium and the magnesium.
Okay, so magnesium for the heart, because it's absolutely incredible for the heart. So tell us a little bit about how magnesium benefits.
Yeah, it opens up the circulation all over your body. It causes the blood vessels to relax. The same way as it can cause anything to relax, it causes the blood vessels to relax. And your heart, as you get older, your heart, when it contracts, it tends to release its contraction more slowly. And this is where magnesium, among other things, but particularly magnesium, helps the full relaxation of the heart in between beats. And if you can do that, then, for instance, a process of tightening of the arteries, not just hardening and filling up with fat, but a sheer tightening of the arteries can be a cause of a heart attack. Yeah, a lot of heart attacks, or a certain proportion of heart attacks, occur and they don't show major buildups in the arteries. They're because of the contracting effect. And you don't want that contracting effect. You're unlikely to get the contracting effect if you have enough magnesium. And over a period of time, that may also help and deal with electrical conductivity problems, say in the heart and elsewhere, because magnesium is so important to regulate the nerves. We know it regulates the nerves, and it regulates the impulse in the nerve to travel properly around the body, including in the heart.
Okay, super. And natural sources of magnesium, and obviously green leafy vegetables. Any other good sources of
Green leafy
magnesium?
grains of
Grains.
any kind, they would have magnesium in them. Beans to a point, anything of a vegetable nature tends to have magnesium.
Okay, brilliant. And I suppose we might as well mention the effect that drinking large amounts of alcohol have on these type of minerals. So, what effect does alcohol have,
Well,
particularly?
it affects two minerals in particular, and that is magnesium and zinc. So just to metabolize alcohol, which is an empty calorie for the most part, yeah, uh, you need to use up magnesium and zinc. Not only that, alcohol is a diuretic, and it'll run out magnesium out of your body. It can also run out potassium, but particularly runs out magnesium and runs out zinc. So those two then are really quite important.
Yeah.
Particularly pure alcohol tends to have this effect very strongly.
Okay.
So
All
a
right.
supplement of magnesium and zinc. Well, in terms of the immune system, we really are recommending zinc. Zinc is one of the most amazing thing. In fact, we've renamed our zinc product ImmuniZinc from that point of view, because that's exactly what it is. Now, we know that zinc has this great effect to raise testosterone to its natural potential, which is absolutely fantastic for men, but also it's amazing for the immune system.
Yeah.
So, and look, if anybody that has bad skin, zinc is a first port of call, you know?
Yeah.
So zinc has this amazing, because zinc is involved with the creation of new cells, and there's nowhere the cells are being created at a faster rate than in your skin. So last week we had the benefits of vitamin C for your skin. This week we have the zinc, and you put the vitamin C and zinc together, and now, we have a very good program.
Yeah, we've and I know that same is for you, but we've had incredible results, particularly with younger people who suffer badly from their skin, and really maybe before they follow the last resort of going to the doctor and getting a prescription of some medication that really could be not great for their health in general, but also even their mental health. Putting them on a program of something like liver, Pantac, and zinc, and you see an incredible change in skin in such a short period of time. Within sort of a couple of weeks to 4 weeks, the skin can almost become completely clear. So
And Pantac is amazing. It declogs the skin,
yeah,
literally declogs the pores, and allows the other nutrients like the vitamin C and the zinc to get into the skin and to build up properly. So the combination of Pantac and zinc is a super quick way to get rid of acne. I mean, just get rid of it, just like that.
yeah, yeah. And it's absolutely amazing because some people are obviously driven demented by the condition of their skin, and this is such a quick and easy way to do it. So maybe actually it's worth just talking about what's happening in the body when a person's skin is producing that kind of acne, or even maybe sort of very, very hard spots elsewhere on the body. What's that a sign of, Martin?
Lumps that occur in the skin, yeah. Well, from the point of view that if we wanted to take the condition that is relieved by a combination of Pantac and zinc, then that is where the pores become clogged by sebum, yeah, and the sebum, the body can't dissolve that sebum, yeah, and this is where the lumps occur and all the rest of it. Pantac tends to dissolve those, and zinc brings down inflammation and infections. Zinc is very anti-infective. Oh my God, it's amazingly anti-infective.
Yeah.
And put it together with some carrot juice, and wow, you're going to take down an awful lot of conditions. Vitamin A, beta carotene, is very, very, it's known as the anti-infective vitamin. Yeah, put that together with zinc, and you can do. I mean, the last case I had was somebody. should I tell you this, with an inflamed eye? Now you have to be so careful if there's anything wrong with your eyes, right? But I'm telling you, carrot juice and zinc wrapped it so quickly. The carrot juice providing the beta carotene turns into vitamin A, and the zinc facilitates the anti-infective function of the vitamin A. Within a day, you'll get a result.
Okay, wow, incredible. I'm actually just trying to look through. I had photographs from probably about a year ago of somebody and the effect that we had on their skin, but I can't seem to just bring it up straight away. But it was a young guy actually just before finishing his leaving cert and going, very concerned about going on his trip after his leaving cert, his holiday. And he was very self-conscious, didn't want to go actually because his skin was in such bad condition, particularly on around his back and his chest area. And within 4 weeks, that's a
problem.
Yeah. And we also got him to cut back on poultry products, so particularly eggs. And why would, I think we've discussed that probably maybe at length, but reducing the amount of poultry products just because of the toxicity and the hormones in those products, would that be
the danger is that you'll harbor bacteria from the Campylobacter and the other bacteria that can't be controlled in dairy products. So if you get a zap of those, then they tend to hang around in your system, and it can show up as an infection in your skin, perhaps. Yeah. So you need to ensure that you're not in the way of assimilating bacteria of the wrong kind or any products of those bacteria. So you don't know what those bacteria are exuding in their natural environment. They can exude toxins and poisons, and you don't need to assimilate any of those things. So there's still a problem in that area. And as far as I mention the other day that we have a problem with groundwater in Ireland because antibiotics are used to a very large extent in poultry farms still. Yeah, although we're told that they're not. Well, we don't know. I mean, the ordinary person doesn't quite know. But it is found in the groundwater now. Another reason for taking pure water, by the way, such as distilled water. Yeah,
absolutely right. So, finally, because we've gone over again, which is not unusual, we are just to talk briefly about the idea of, because some people will be aware of acid and alkaline. So. What should your body be naturally, your pH levels, which are acid minerals, which are alkaline minerals? How does that all fit together?
Yeah, well, your blood pH is tightly controlled, and it shouldn't vary very much. And it's slightly alkaline. It's supposed to be slightly alkaline at all times. The difficulty is that if you don't take what we call alkaline minerals, and the alkaline minerals primarily are calcium, magnesium, sodium, and potassium. Now, zinc and iron do come into it as well. They're the 6 alkaline minerals. Now, if you don't have enough of those, then it's hard to maintain the alkaline balance of the body. And, with the buildup of acidity, things go wrong, and you get these crystals forming and deposits forming and malfunctions in different areas. You become rather more prone to inflammatory conditions as well. It doesn't help your immune system. Being alkaline is the way to go. So when you eat fruits and you eat vegetables, you become more alkaline. But that can be a two-edged sword because you can take all of those things and not have enough calcium. And although the vegetables will give you magnesium, to be fair, you may lack calcium, you might even lack iron, and you might well lack zinc. So this is where you can't manage. The ordinary person will not be able to manage just on a diet of fruits and vegetables exclusively. They'll have to take something that provides iron, zinc, and calcium at some point. Now, it's true the green vegetables can give you calcium. This is true, but you have to eat an awful lot of them. So the protein type foods tend to give you calcium, iron, and zinc, the right kind of protein foods. For instance, anything of a dairy product nature, for instance, like the protein that we have, or any other type of close to nature, well-produced cheese or dairy product in general. And fortunately, dairy production in Ireland tends to be grass-fed in general, which is rather good. That's the calcium side. Then we would have magnesium. Again, that's from vegetables and grains, yes, or from a supplement. And zinc. Zinc is really only abundantly available from meat, because there are other forms. I mean, you can take pumpkin seeds and all the rest of it, but they have inhibitors that help you, that tend to prevent you absorbing a lot of zinc from them. So really the good sources of zinc are something like prawns. Prawns are very good for zinc, for example. And so animal foods are the ones that provide the zinc to a large extent. Now, if you don't want to do that, then a zinc supplement is very easy to get and very easy to take, and should be taken, frankly, because it tends to, like I say, it boosts the hormones, it boosts the immune system, it supports the immune system. Yeah. So that's the story on that. And they as a group, those minerals tend to allow you to be more alkaline. They take the stress off the body in trying to maintain the alkaline levels in the blood. And as a result of that, then you have a far more functional system.
Okay, great. So I'm just wondering now, have we covered everything that I was hoping to cover? So just to give a brief summary then, there are some trace minerals that people should be aware of, particularly if they're looking to boost things like their immune system. They want to have benefits for their joints. So that would be selenium, found in Brazil nuts, but also found in cell rejuvenation mix, which is such a great combination of everything from antioxidants to those trace minerals. And chromium, if somebody was suffering from metabolic syndrome, had trouble with regulating insulin levels, things like that. So chromium might be a good.
The original form of chromium that we used to recommend was brewer's yeast. Brewer's yeast has a really absorbable form of chromium in it, and so it's very, very good. You have to be careful that it's the right kind of brewer's yeast, because I've taken yeast type supplements, and you don't absorb them that well. You may not be able to break those down very well. You need a really good type of yeast to be
to get the most benefit.
But and then we have chromium as a supplement, which we have in something like cell rejuvenation mix and in the Pro-Fem, and that has this stabilizing effect on blood sugar all around, and it's really very harmless and well worth considering.
Okay, cool. And then we're looking at calcium, magnesium in particular, for all the reasons that we've mentioned, and it's so important that they go in balance together. So it's normally in your diet you need a ratio of 2-to-1. So 800, I think, milligrams of calcium is the RDA, isn't it? And 800 to 400 magnesium. So
something like that, yes. I mean, a lot of people will say take rather more magnesium. You know what I mean? Than 2-to-1. Then you say take up to 1-to-1.
Okay.
But a larger amount of magnesium with your calcium would be quite appropriate and very, very helpful. But I tell you can't do without the calcium and magnesium. I'm going to say to you that take too much calcium without the magnesium, you get all these calcium deposits, and it doesn't help you in the long run. Take the calcium and magnesium together, you're going to win. Yeah. But if you try to do without the calcium, then that's nearly worse. Yeah. So if it's one thing to learn, and that is how to manage the calcium aspect of things. Now, a really good balanced diet would work in that way. It works once you're getting enough magnesium in terms of vegetables in particular, and some fruits in the diet. But you do need enough calcium, and one of the things that I've observed over the years is that people who drop dairy products out of the diet, they don't know how to get calcium, and they will suffer the effects of not enough calcium in the diet as time goes on. That needs to be solved on an individual basis for people.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And so important, particularly as aging is causing you to lose protein and to lose bone density. So you just don't want to do anything to accelerate that process at all. I mean,
Sugar.
obviously goes without saying. Actually, one thing that we might just wrap up on, Martin, because fluid retention can be a problem for people. And minerals play a big role in either fluid retention or the release of fluid. So maybe might just briefly mention that before we.
The minerals come into it, and potassium and magnesium in particular spring to mind. So if you have enough potassium, we haven't discussed potassium, but potassium is what's available, particularly in fruits, but also in vegetables. However, we boil the vegetables, and a lot of the potassium gets lost, right? Fruits then are going to be largely our source of potassium in the diet. So good. However, I've many times seen it that the fluid retention thing, it's mainly ladies suffer from it, right? And it affects the ankles and the wrists, etc. Now, what can really wrap that is opening up the circulation thoroughly with something like Nova.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'm telling you, it can wrap it. And that tends to normalize the opening and closing of the arteries so that you don't get this excessive pressure on your blood. Yeah. So if you can have a good quality opening and closing of the arteries, then it also tends to affect the lymphatic system and help the drainage for excessive fluid in the legs in particular.
Okay, amazing, brilliant. All right, great. So, any particular fruit that's very high in potassium to maybe help that? So, I think
Apples are great.
apples. Yeah,
Apples, anything as simple as apples. Yeah.
yeah, and it's
Most of
probably
the
so.
common fruits we have are all going to supply potassium. Apples, oranges, bananas, kiwis,
Okay,
grapes.
cool.
Yeah.
One particular situation that people might find that they get a lot of swelling or a lot of fluid retention is flying. Not that people are doing a huge amount of it at the moment, but when you take a long flight, often people will get that build-up. So we would think that the build-up of fluid to that degree is not a good sign, and circulation should be addressed. But to release that type of pressure on the system, maybe having something that would have potassium could help at the time, and then to try and address it long term.
You can eat apples. You can eat apples and they have potassium in them. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can
Okay,
eat
brilliant.
3 or 4 apples. And that
3 or 4
it should be
apples.
it should be a help.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. So, foods that are high in boron, just before we disappear.
I can't say that I know. Boron tends to be distributed in vegetables.
Okay.
It's a distributed mineral, you know.
Yeah.
And again, like copper, it's available in vegetables. Yeah, and no food springs to my mind as being a great source of boron. So if any of you out there know a particular food that's fantastic for that, you must let me know.
Fantastic. Okay, brilliant. Great. So then the other thing, just in summary, that just keep an eye on if you are thinking about supplementing your diet with different minerals, just to make sure that you're looking for those organic forms as opposed to the inorganic forms, and chelated forms
Yeah,
even better. So
particularly for the macro minerals, the calcium and that type of thing, right?
brilliant.
The trace minerals, very often they're going to be provided in inorganic forms like sodium selenite and that type of thing, right? But they are very simple compounds which are in fact natural to the body.
Fantastic. Brilliant, Martin. Once again, a wealth of information. I hope everybody enjoyed that. And we will cover a new topic next week. I'm hoping that something to do with maybe nucleic acids and getting people to understand how to
What a
fully
good idea.
rejuvenate their system now that we've got them, stopping them from storing fat, and we're getting them to gain lean tissue. And now we just want their system to operate at a totally different level. So next week, perhaps we'll cover nucleic acids. How does that sound?
Look forward to it.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Martin. Thanks everybody for joining us. If you're watching this later, we hope you really enjoy it. And Colette, thank you. Avocado is high in boron. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Great. See you next week. Take care. Goodbye.